we should be done with that by now, right?
Yes.
The half of the cost that we actually have.
Yep.
Okay. Let's just go through it.
Number one, what is the purpose of hydraulic pressure in a brake system? A, to decrease brake application force.
A is incorrect.
B,
Yep. Increase. Hydraulic pressure, increase, brake application force.
I thought what it meant was like applying your foot to a pedal.
You thought what it meant was what
That's
now?
what I, like applying your foot to the pedal, you didn't need to put that much force on the pedal. That's why I chose decrease.
Oh, I see.
What would make it decrease?
What's that?
What will make it decrease?
Well, all you have to do is just push the brake pedal and it increases the brake fluid pressure, right? And it transmits motion because you can't compress liquid, right? So the purpose of the hydraulic system is to increase brake force application, okay? Okay, two.
What allow rocket to transmit motion in a closed system? Is it B, ability to expand?
No.
D, dog.
Mm-hmm.
Inability.
Inability to compress. You
Liquid.
cannot compress liquid, therefore if you put pressure on it, it transmits motion. Right? You just push it and it performs an action because you cannot compress liquid, which is one of the reasons you can't have air in the system. You can compress air, right? Okay. Three.
What is necessary for correct operation of the brake hydraulic system? Is it D?
Is it which one?
D?
B?
C, cat. Cat.
C. Did you say C or B?
I said D, but I had C, sir.
Oh. Okay. Obviously you can't have air in the system, right?
Right.
An excess means you have too much. A leak means you got a problem. Air-free system, cannot have air in the brake system, hydraulic system, all right? Okay.
How can different forces be created in a hydraulic brake system? I wasn't sure about this one, but I chose C.
It's C.
Yep, it sure is. Inside wheel cylinders, that's what creates different forces in the brake system.
The other ones just didn't make sense, but I couldn't remember. Like brake fluid and brake pads didn't make sense, but I was like,
Yeah,
this.
Are there different types of brake fluids?
there is different types of brake
And
fluid.
do they make a difference?
There's specific brake fluid for specific applications. It's just like, your oil, you gotta use the right oil. Normally on the cap, on the master cylinder, it'll tell you what brake fluid to use.
It's either dot 3 or dot 4.
Usually 3, but 4, in some cases, European cars, I think, use 4.
Yeah.
Okay. Where are we at, 5?
5.
Yeah.
What is the function of the master cylinder in a brake system?
Is it C?
Function of a master cylinder brake system?
To regulate
C, cat.
It regulates brake fluid pressure. So yes, C.
Is it 6?
Number 6.
Why is the master cylinder separated into 2 pressure
Six.
elements?
6.
Is it A, to provide braking forces?
Pads.
It is.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay.
Where are the three steel cups located in a cylinder? D?
B, boy.
A. You come same port in the inlet port hole. Okay,
What happens when the brake pedal is depressed in a master cylinder? Please don't be upset with me if I get this wrong.
oh, that's okay, I didn't expect anybody to get this one right.
I think, I was struggling between C and A. I kind of went with A.
C, cat?
C.
Is it C?
Yep,
What happens when the brake pedal is released in the master cylinder? C.
yep. It is. Okay, 10. Who remembers 10?
Single circuit master cylinder?
What type of master cylinder they use in front-wheel drive cars?
Is it D?
Yep. Diagonal split. Okay. 11.
What is the purpose of checking the master cylinder for venting when diagnosing a brake problem? Is it B to regulate the brake temperature?
Not B.
A.
A, yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah, okay.
Sure proper brake function.
What are,
For art, sometimes. Master cylinder. D.
Stiff brake pedal?
B,
Yeah.
yeah. They should have put spongy brake pedal on there, that would have been more accurate, but that'll work. Okay,
what is the purpose of a pressure differential switch? Is that one to regulate the brake fluid flow?
Now is B to warn the driver.
right,
I was gonna go with that.
yep.
What is RBWL? I didn't answer this one, but is it no, it's not. Is it a warning light?
Yeah,
Mhm.
It is.
it's red brake
Red
warning.
brake warning light, yeah.
Oh, makes
Yeah,
sense.
RBWL, yeah. Okay, so we're at 15.
What is the purpose of a proportioning valve, B boy? To regulate pressure to rear brakes in proportion to front brakes?
Yes,
Is
it
it?
is.
Shit, I got it backwards then. So then that would make 16 A.
Negative.
C, cat.
Wait a minute, 15 is B
Yes, it is.
and 16 is C?
Yeah,
Yes, it is.
It's kind of C.
this is what you were complaining about yesterday. Metering valve?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got it right there.
Okay, how about 17?
What is the brake
A,
Mm-hmm. Yep. So they call it a combination valve, to combine the function of a replacing valve with one or more. Okay. Last one, what do we got here?
C.
Which one?
C,
C,
cat.
yeah. If you had C, then you are
Calcium
correct.
1 through 5.
Why, isn't a sensor an output?
No, sensor switch is always input. Okay. All right, let's get back to this one. Well, how'd we do on that?
Okay.
Good, but for number 16, you see how that's worded differently? To prevent full operation of disc brakes until a certain pressure is sent to rear
Mhm.
drum brakes.
Mhm.
Yesterday, it was saying front drum brakes.
No front drum brakes.
That's what it said, that's what the question was, wasn't it?
Discs are in the front,
I
drums are in
got
the
14
back.
out of 18.
Yeah, because number 3 from yesterday, it says the metering valve delays front
What'd you get?
brake action. This one,
It says the same thing in different
Pretty good.
words.
Pretty
Yeah,
good.
but you see how that
On
front,
display.
like, when it says rear, I'm like, it clicked right away, because it said rear. This one yesterday was saying front, and that's what was throwing
page
me
number?
off.
Oh,
1144.
okay, I got you. All right. Next chapter, 100, this is just brake fluid, brake lines. The last part of this talks about flaring brake lines, how to do it. You could actually make your own brake lines out of brake tubing, or if you had to cut one or make a special line, it has to be done with a special flaring tool in order for it to seal properly. If we don't get through this good enough, or I don't think we've had enough time to get through this, since there's a lot here, we'll extend this till Monday, okay? Because we have 3 weeks on the next one anyway, so probably be beneficial to give you guys an extra day on this, or obviously the weekend time as well. So, we probably won't do the ASE test tomorrow, okay, because this is just a lot to put into 3 days, so. And, we'll still be on schedule for everything else, because like I said, we have 3 weeks for, the next 2, so we should be fine. This is just, it's gonna be squeezing too much into 3 days.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Okay, let's go through the brake fluid and brake fluid lines. Purpose, function, and specific brake fluids. We're gonna go through the different types of brake fluids, brake service procedures, precautions, types of rubber that's used in the brake system components. Obviously, the brake fluid can't have a negative effect on the rubber seals in the brake system. Otherwise, you'd have problems with the brakes. Sometimes people put the wrong brake fluid in the master cylinder, contaminates the whole system. Everything at that point has to be replaced, okay? All
Can you
right.
repeat that, please? Sometimes somebody puts what in the what?
If you put the wrong brake fluid in the car, it contaminates the system. Because I've seen people put whatever, not even brake fluid. Just, somebody doesn't really, I don't know, not paying attention or whatever, maybe they'll put power steering fluid or something in the master cylinder. Okay, contaminate the system, and you end up with dragging brakes and all kinds of problems, and then you have to replace all the components in there that have rubber in them. All right, brake fluid, it's designed to function in the hydraulic brake system under all operating conditions. It should not be able to evaporate or freeze. We talked about that yesterday. It has to have physical properties. Polyalkylene glycol, either mixture or called polyglycol for short. Brake fluid is typically clear to amber in color. Will have a high boiling point and a low freezing point. No ability to damage rubber parts in the system. You do have rubber parts in the system, okay, in your brake calipers, in your master cylinder, sealing cup, stuff like that. Has to be able to be friendly to the rubber components. All brake fluid must meet Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard 116. There's different types of brake fluid, most common ones, .3, 4, 5.15. We'll go through what each one of those means. Gives you the boiling point on them, wet and dry. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, but one of the reasons that you should do brake flush on the car every couple of years, or every 20, 30,000 miles, something like that, is because brake fluid does have the tendency to pick up moisture, okay? So if you get a little bit of moisture in the brake fluid, or let's say water, pick up water because it's hydroscopic, right? Water boils a lot quicker than brake fluid does, right? Brake fluid gets hot. So if the system has moisture in it, the brake fluid is not going to be as effective, because when the brakes get hot, it could cause the brake fluid to actually boil, okay? Can't absorb moisture from the air, so sometimes they recommend buying it in a metal container, but I wouldn't worry too much about that. Most of the time you get it in a plastic container. It's not going to be a problem. The important thing is to make sure it's in a sealed container, okay? It will absorb moisture from the air at about 2% per year. As brake fluid absorbs water, the boiling point decreases, and you don't want that. Okay. Types of DOT 4, DOT is just stands for Department of Transportation, okay? You just call it DOT for short. European vehicles is what your 4 is used for. Sometimes 4 is used for race cars, usually blue in color. On the cap of the master cylinder, it's going to tell you what it wants, okay? Always use whatever fluid this particular vehicle wants, whether it's coolant, oil, power steering fluid, brake fluid, whatever it is. Just make sure you use the proper fluids. In this particular case, this one wants only DOT 4 fluid from a sealed container. Even says that on the cap, from a sealed container, okay? They're very specific about that. DOT 5 brake fluids, mostly used in motorcycles. It spills, it won't hurt paint surfaces, okay? Brake fluid will damage paint, so be careful not to spill it. Obviously, if you have a motorcycle, you've got a little master cylinder, it's kind of maybe easy to spill it, damage of paint, so they use a special fluid on those, so because it's not harmful to the paint. Hydraulic brake system mineral oil. I don't think we have to worry too much about that one. Okay, here's an example of a brake system that was contaminated. Both of those rubber sealing cups were exactly the same size. The one on the left was exposed to mineral oil. And you can see how it expanded. One of the reasons you have to put the correct fluid in. Okay, so what is the biggest difference between DOT 3, 4, 5, 5.1?
5
Boiling
is
temp-
more expensive
So,
than
yeah.
DOT 3 and doesn't affect rubber parts.
Okay, that would be the 5.1, right?
Yeah. DOT 4 is more specified for European vehicles and
Okay.
domestic vehicles.
3 is probably the most common,
Yeah.
and the boiling points are obviously different as well. So, okay. Inspection and testing of brake fluid. They do make test strips. I don't know if the shops have them, some do, some don't. Normally, you would just look at the color and the level, right? Is it between the minimum and the maximum, and does it look okay? If it's dark, obviously it should have been flushed a long time ago, okay? It should be clear to amber in color. Boiling point tester, you're not gonna do that, contamination test. Probably the most you would ever do is maybe use a test strip. And all that does is you just stick it in the brake fluid and it will give you a idea of its condition. Should not look like that. Brake fluid should have been flushed on this one a long time ago. Test strips can be used to check the condition of the fluid. If you don't have the test strip, just give it a good visual inspection. If it looks dark, if it looks like it's old or whatever. I would recommend doing a brake flush on it. So what happens on these test strips, they just turn a certain color when you dip it in the fluid. You just compare it to this chart on the side of the container, and it'll kind of give you an idea of its condition. Another type of tester is storage of the brake fluid. Remember, only in its original container should be sealed. Don't reuse brake fluid that's been siphoned from another vehicle. Only use fresh, new brake fluid for flushing the brake system. Inspection, okay? Make sure it's got the proper level. Color and condition look good. If you have testing strips or whatever, you can use those, but rubber compatibility chart, you don't have to worry too much about that. That just tells you what type of fluids are compatible with what. Okay, master cylinder piston seals are usually constructed from EPDM rubber, and the diaphragm and the vacuum power brake booster is usually made from SBR. Sometimes the master cylinder will leak and it will get into the brake booster. Sometimes it will damage this diaphragm and the brake booster. If that's the case, you'll have to replace both of them. Drum brake wheel cylinder. Most of those are either type of rubber like we had before, the booster and the master cylinder. Typical disc brake caliper. There's really not much to a disc brake caliper. Okay, this is just your mounting point that goes on your steering knuckle, pads, caliper housing itself. You got the seal, the dust boot, and the piston. Really, that's all there is to it. Not much there. If you were to take one of these apart, take the caliper off the car, you could actually put your blow gun and compressed air, like with a rubber tip, into this bleeder screw hole here, and it will push this piston out. You can actually rebuild these brake calipers. On the cylinder here, put the seal in it. The piston looks good, you can reuse it. Normally, again, you're not going to do that, but you can do that. It's actually pretty easy to do.
And what case would you do that on?
I'm sorry?
In what case would you do that?
Maybe a system that didn't have a brake fluid flush for a long time, or it just had been abused, or whatever.
Okay.
You might take them apart, clean them up, put new seals in them, stuff like that. Normally, you just buy a new brake caliper, like most of the time we do. Okay. It is possible to do that, just so you know. And in order to get it apart, like I said, just put a little bit of air to this spot where the bleeder screw goes, and it will push this piston out. You should block this right here with something, because when that piston comes out, it comes out with quite a bit of force. Okay? You don't want it to fly across the shop. Okay. Brake lines are double-walled steel. Okay? High-strength flexible lines are needed to connect the master cylinder to each wheel. So you have flexible lines and you have hard lines. The hard lines run front to back in the car. The flexible lines will go from there to the actual wheel cylinders, brake calipers, whatever. They have to have flexible lines there because your wheels turn, suspension moves, right? Can't have stiff lines in there. They would just end up breaking, right? Okay, double wall steel. Two types of flares they use on brake lines. The double flare, or the ISO they call it, or bubble flare. If you're going to replace brake lines, make sure you use the correct brake lines. Normally we don't have to do that here, luckily, because normally the only time you have to replace brake lines is for a car that lived somewhere where it got really rusty. Sometimes that will compromise the brake lines, or if there's some sort of damage to them. But other than that, normally you wouldn't have to replace the brake lines. The flexible lines, yeah, maybe every 10 years or so, whatever, 20, depends on the car's use. But as far as the steel brake lines, normally you should never have to replace those. Sometimes you'll see those coiled brake lines from the master cylinder down to where they split off. That's just to keep from stressing metal fatigue from movement, okay? So armored brake lines, you'll see those sometimes underneath the car. They're wrapped with a coil wire wrap, prevents damage from road debris, stuff like that. Your flexible ones go to the wheels, which we talked about a minute ago. Those must be able to withstand a pressure of about 1,000 psi. Okay, not gonna worry about that. You're supposed to wash the other side of your vehicle. If anybody's ever lived in those states, anybody ever lived in those states?
Mm-hmm,
The ones that are in the dark area there?
mm-hmm.
You mean
And,
orange or green?
Did they ask you to wash the underside of your vehicle? Did you
Oh,
have,
yeah, that's
did
like.
you have car washes that would,
Oh, yeah.
you could drive through and they would clean the underside of your car?
Most
Yeah.
people do not do it.
Yeah, just keep your brake lines from rusting, is
Yeah.
what it is. Yeah,
Most people don't do it, and the cars are horribly rusted,
yep.
yeah.
Okay, the flares on the brake lines. When you put a brake line together, your actual seal point is at the flare, not at the threads, okay? They do not seal through the threads. The threads just allows this to be tightened into here, okay? This would be your brake caliper or wheel cylinder or whatever, brake line here. That's the other type. This is the double flare, they call that one. This is the ISO or ball bubble flare. If for some reason you had to make your own brake line, you can buy brake tubing at parts stores in different lengths. It's already flared, but if it's not the length you need it and you have to cut it, they do make flaring tools so you can make that flare again. Not gonna go through that, but you can do that. They make a tool to do that, and you can see them doing it here. Takes a little practice to get it right, but that's what it looked like when you were done. Here's the important part. Before you do this, make sure you put the nut on here to tighten it up. I've seen people do this and then they forgot to put the nut on there, and then you gotta cut it off and do it all over again because you can't get the nut on there. Those are your coil brake lines. Help prevent cracks due to vibration. That's why they have that extra. Some you'll see them coiled up a little bit, but typically you'll see that coming off of the master cylinder. Armored brake lines, they have that steel wire wrap around them. That's what this is. This one's obviously rusty. That brake line is leaking. Okay. They also make tubing benders for making brake lines, but normally, again, you won't have to do that. Just showing you how the cutter works. On the rubber or flexible brake lines, typical flexible brake hose faults. Many of them cannot be seen, yet the brakes remain applied after the pedal is released. If you have an old car with these flexible lines, which they all have them, but sometimes they will get damaged internally. You can't really see it, but it will cause a problem because what they're showing you here is you get an internal problem with the brake hose that you just can't see. Sometimes it will cause the brakes to remain applied after you let off the pedal. Okay, because when you push on the pedal, it'll force the fluid through, so it works, but it kind of doesn't let it back. The flexible lines should be inspected carefully whenever you do the brakes. Also, when you do the brakes, you know that you're not supposed to let the brake caliper hang off of the brake hose, right? You're supposed to use some sort of hook, or some people just bend up a coat hanger and just, okay? Don't let it hang by the flex line, all right? They do make special brake line wrenches. Kind of look like that. Those are really for any type of fluid line. They work better than the regular open-end wrench because a lot of times that'll just strip the nut, okay? Two types, the bubble and ISO we went through, okay, and that's that. giving you the color one, you know.
It's cause I'm full of,
It's your turn to get the color.
full of them joke. You get that joke?
I guess our guys in the back row will be here sometime today. At least they said they would. Bad part about that, one late, they're both late.
Yeah.
Bless you. Whole chapter.
Chapter 100, we did a test from yesterday to review and see where we were at. And then chapter 100, we're just finishing the review. And that's page 1144.
Anybody not done? Okay. Hey, look who made it. What happened today?
Transportation's kind of a little rocky this morning.
Okay. We're gonna be okay now?
Yeah,
Just a today thing, hopefully?
yeah.
All right.
I got an unrelated question.
You got an unrelated question, unrelated to what? Brakes?
Yeah. What do you think better, like a street tune or a dyno tune?
Dyno tune.
As far as, what are you talking about?
Like,
Your car?
yeah, like say I get a part put on my car, should I go to a dyno to get it tuned or
Depends on what the part is.
one too bad?
It really depends what you're gonna do. If you're gonna go dyno, that's like you're going straight on the track strip. If you're gonna get like a street tune, isn't that like more for like driving?
Yeah.
Like you should get like a street tune.
It's
Like-
better on a dyno tune, because one, if you're on a street tune, they're gonna have you get to specific speeds, especially with headers, you're gonna have to get to specific speed limits, so one, it's safer. You're not worried about people, pedestrians, you're not worried about other cars, you're not worried about cops, okay? Two, depending on the temperature outside, it might be a little, cause it's starting to get hotter, could be a little too hot, you know, sometimes it's cold, it's not cold anymore, could be a little too warm. You get, you know, decent air going in because they put a big ass fan in front of your car on the dyno. And plus, from experience, you're not getting much done to your car, so it's not gonna happen. But for me, our shit blew up on the street tune because the system lagged and we went a little bit past the speed limit, and that was it. So it's better. It's definitely better to do
That's
it.
cause yours is boosted, right?
Yeah, but again, you're just getting headers, so you don't have to worry about that. But still, with all the other factors, it's a lot better to do with dyno tune. Plus, they have all the equipment that you actually need to get it right. You know, the computer can lag, the computer can do shit wrong, it can die, whatever. You know, they have the whole system set up right there in front of you. You could. It's a little more expensive. If you wanna go the cheaper route, that's fine. It's not much of a difference. The only thing is you just make sure you gotta do it right. That's the only thing.
You keeping the cats on it?
I'm
Because
getting,
we talked about that before.
yeah, I'm getting,
You can, you know, you can get the, you can do the headers and still keep the cap. I mean,
Yeah.
It's not gonna pass smog without it. You'll be driving around looking at check engine light for the rest of your life. And, it won't pass emission tests. So,
getting like high flow packs or something like that.
what's that?
I think I'm getting like high flow packs or something like that.
Yeah, it's fine as long as they're there and as long as it's good quality, because if not, some of the aftermarket catalytic converters are not as efficient and they will still cause you to have a low catalyst efficiency codes. So, just don't go cheap on the converters, I'll tell you that. And typically, if that's all you're gonna do to it, I wouldn't get too overly excited about having that special tune. It'll probably be okay the way it is, especially if you're not gonna be driving it real hard. So, you know, if you were doing something,
There are
crazy
some
to it, like
questions.
maybe
The other ones
changing
are-
cam or boosting and something like that, definitely. But just for what you're doing, you're probably gonna be okay.
So street tune is when they drive it on the street, and tune it, right? Just feel how the car is. Is that right?
Well, it depends on what you're talking about. I mean, for the most part, depends on how you're gonna drive the car, depends on what you want it for. You know, if you're just gonna be playing around on the street, then yeah, you don't need some, race tune or some crazy, right? You're wasting your time, especially if it's boosted. If you do like a tune on a boosted car that you want, let's say the car is capable of making, you know, 800 horsepower. You don't need that driving out on the street. The engine's gonna last longer, it's gonna serve you better, just get a conservative tune on it. It's gonna run great on the street. You know, you don't need to go full max on everything, okay? That's strictly if the car is just gonna be dedicated race car, you know?
That's what someone I think that's on, because you have an 800 horsepower Mustang.
Yeah.
He said you can't even use it on the street.
Yeah, it's a waste, honestly.
Yeah, you can't do anything
I
with
mean,
it.
you can't. First of all, you got no traction, second of all, where you gonna drive it like that without getting in trouble? You know?
If it's 800 horsepower, you better not be getting caught in trouble unless you get into a crash, and that's the whole situation.
Yeah.
Terrible. You can start.
Okay. Is everybody done with this one? Yeah?
Are we gonna skip over them, or should they just, you know?
We good.
Okay.
No, you guys are done, huh?
Yeah.
This, which one are we on? 100?
Yeah, one.
100. Do we start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Two technicians are discussing brake fluid. Technician A says the brake fluid standards are determined by Society of Automotive Engineers, SAE. Technician B says the brake fluid standards are determined by the Department of Transportation, DOT. Which technician is correct? Both technicians?
Okay.
Is it both?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they both get their nose in there, yeah.
It's on the first FMVSS paragraph. So page 1144.
The rubber parts designed to be used with HSMO are not compatible with polyglycol
Polyglycol
fluid.
fluid, yeah.
True.
That is true, yeah. Yeah.
It's right here on 1147 in the green box.
Question 3, brake fluid, AG's water, is the boiling temperature decrease.
That is correct. It is.
Say A, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it likes to absorb water, so as it ages, boiling point gets reduced on it. Okay, where are we at? 4, yeah.
Bless you.
Is it B?
The,
B.
what's the question asking? Which arrow indicates the wheel cylinder cup?
B, right?
That's gonna be the rubber part.
So it's C?
Where the, what's that?
Is it C then?
B, yeah,
B.
yeah.
Oh, it's B?
Yeah.
B,
Yeah.
this right here, the rubber part. Right.
Bless you.
Okay, 5.
Technician A says not 5 brake fluid can be added to not 3 brake fluid. He's wrong. Technician B says that is wise to purchase brake fluid as in metal rather than plastic container, which technician A is correct. I put B.
Does that matter?
Not really, but yeah, B is the right answer, yeah. If you can, it's fine, but again, not a big deal.
Yes,
Don't-
sir, I
Don't
couldn't
don't be
even
scared of a
find that.
plastic container. Again, the most important thing is it's in a sealed container and it's new. All right?
The type of brake fluid most often recommended by vehicle manufacturers is A.
A is right, 3 is normally what everybody will recommend.
Belonging the brake fluids is an indication of an internal leak.
Yep, it sure is.
Is what?
Indication of an internal leak. If you have a bulge in a flexible brake hose, the rubber ones.
Technician A says FMVSS 116 lists brake fluid standard only for temperature compatibility. Technician B says FMVSS 116 lists a brake fluid standard for viscosity and boiling point. Which technician is correct? Technician B?
Yep.
Why should brake calipers be supported by a wire during brake service and not allowed to hang by the flexible brake hose? B, to help prevent damage to the brake hose.
Mhm.
Question 10, the drive on the.
You said B, right?
Yep.
Higher than a white one, true.
All right. Through is through. Okay. 1 we did, 2 we did, 3 we did, 4 we did. Question 5. Glycol-based brake fluid causes seals to swell slightly.
Causes fuels to swell slightly.
Deck B says dot 5. Brake fluid causes rubber seals to swell slightly.
Technician A?
Oh.
Let's take,
Yep,
okay, yeah.
yep. The glycol-based. 2 types of flares used on the brake lines. What are they?
Double flare ISO?
Yep.
Type of tubing.
What type of tubing flare is shown in this
Flare nut.
picture?
To ISO.
Yeah, ISO fitting. Flare. Say you flare.
That is the SAE.
On 1151 that says that's an ISO fitting.
That one is the, that one has.
And it's a flare nut, so ISO flare. Is that a
This is the same as the picture on the left, on 1151.
Double flare fitting?
It's the
well,
double
where does it
flare.
say it's
yeah.
a
Mhm.
SAE flare?
It's the same thing.
So even if I did say ISO, I wouldn't be wrong.
No, the ISO and the bubble are the same. That's the picture on the right. This is the double flare or SAE.
Okay, I think I see the difference, but I don't.
Yeah, difference is right here.
Yeah.
Yep.
I still don't see where it says SAE though. I'm not worried about it.
Okay, we did that one. Armored brake line can be replaced with plain double wall brake line.
With a plain double wall brake line? Why would you do that?
Exactly. No. It is not a characteristic of conventional brake fluid.
Not
Last the life of the vehicle unless there's a leak.
It does not last the life of the vehicle. Okay, remember we're looking for the knot. All right. Next one.
in the quiz room.
Oh, yeah, we'll look at the book as well.
Oh, my knee.
Okay. 1 is A, we did that one, right?
Yes.
2 is C, we did that one. 3 is B, we did that one. 4 is A, we did that one. 5 is A, that's a repeat. 6 is B, we did that one as well. Okay, 7 we did not do. Why brake lines are coiled near the master cylinder? Many vehicles, technician A says these help prevent moisture from flowing from the master cylinder to the calipers. Wow.
Would that? No.
Technician B.
Where did he come off? Yeah, technician A is out in left field. Technician B says it help prevents crack caused by vibration. Yes, it's B. Flexible brake hoses should be inspected for all of the following except
Worn out ribs.
worn outer ribs. We don't care about that. Make sure it's not twisted, cracked, leaking, anything like that. We did number 9, and 10 should be obvious.
What was 9?
Prevent damage to the brake hose. 10 should be obvious. Use brake fluid. Used brake fluid should be disposed of properly according to whatever state law that you happen to have to follow. 10 is what?
C.
C? Yeah. Next chapter deals with brake bleeding. Before we get started on that chapter, I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions, okay?
Okay.
What's the purpose of brake bleeding?
To get rid of the air inside of the system,
Okay, why can't you have air in the system?
because it can cause issues.
Makes your brake pedal spongy, and you can compress, air compresses, right, and fluid does not. Okay. Under what circumstances would you have to do a brake bleed?
When you have brake problems, spongy.
Okay, but, I guess what I'm getting at is, under normal conditions, would you have to bleed your brakes when you, let's say, when you replace the brake pads? Let's say your brakes are worn out.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you replace the brake pads, the rotors, whatever, right? Would you have to bleed the brakes?
No.
No. You're not gonna get any air in the system, right? Okay. The only time you have to bleed the brakes is if for some reason a part has to be, a brake line has to be replaced, a caliper has to be replaced, something where you open the system and you have brake fluid leak, master cylinder replacement, whatever, right? Under normal conditions, you should not have to bleed your brakes, okay? If you're doing a flush and you do it right, it's not gonna get air in the system, it's just gonna change the fluid, okay? So that's the only thing. Different types, there's 3 different methods of bleeding brakes. You can do a gravity bleed, which means you just take the top off the master cylinder and open the brake bleeders and just let it drip. Okay, it'll eventually get the air out of it, okay? Takes a long time, but you can do it by yourself. I did that one time on my car, I rebuilt the brake system on it. I let it sit for like 2 or 3 days with the brake bleeders open, just letting it, because the whole system was new. Okay? Not the most efficient way to do it, but you can do it that way. The other one is with an assistant, have somebody inside the car push on the brake pedal, you open the bleeders, right? The other one is a vacuum or pressure. Pressure, when you're gonna put a special tool over the master cylinder, it basically pushes the fluid through. If you do it from the bleeders, you can do like a vacuum type bleed where you have like a vacuum pump thing and it pulls the fluid through, okay? So that's the long and short of brake bleeding. But the need, we talked about various methods, sequence. Sometimes there is a sequence, they want you to start with a certain one, farthest away from the master cylinder, work your way to the closest one. Manual bleeding procedure, vacuum bleed, gravity bleed, pressure bleed, which we talked a minute about. How to service the hydraulic ABS and flush brake fluid. Brake bleeding, all it does is remove any trapped air from the hydraulic system. If you're gonna replace the master cylinder, we talked about this yesterday, bench bleed the master cylinder before you put it on. Fill it with clean new brake fluid. Slowly depress the brake pedal as you crack open the master cylinder bleed screw, which it probably is not gonna have. Some do, some don't. Wouldn't worry too much about that. Most master cylinders don't have their own bleed screws, okay? You just use that little plastic tubing and the fittings that they give you with the master cylinder. We looked at that yesterday. Repeat the procedure until you get a solid flow of brake fluid leaving the bleeder and you don't see any air bubbles in there. If it does not have bleeder valves, the outlet tube nuts can be loosened instead. Bench bleeding. If you're gonna replace master cylinder, it's a good idea to do this. You're just getting the air out of it before you install it. Normally, if you buy a master cylinder, it comes with those little tubes and fittings that will screw into here, and then you just run the tubes right back into there. And you just take a tool and just kind of push it back and forth, right? Work it, just like you're pushing on the brake, same thing. Luckily, again, we work on cars that don't have rust problems. The ones that do, sometimes the brake bleeders can freeze up in there, and you can't get the brake bleeders loose. Sometimes they'll break off when you go to loosen them, in which case you probably just have to replace the brake caliper. It'd be easier than trying to fix it, but they're just giving you procedures how to break it loose if it is frozen. But again, not gonna really run into that, which is good. This is a brake bleeder.
A what?
This is a brake bleeder screw right there. It's a giant size one in the picture. So, what's wrong with this picture?
Rusted and clogged.
There's no hole where the hole should be, right? That is a heavily contaminated and neglected brake system. You notice this looks just like the flare on the brake line, right?
Yeah.
Okay? When you tighten this up, it seals to here so the fluid can come through. When you loosen this, it allows fluid to flow past here because you've just broken this seal, right? Goes through this hole all the way up through the bleeder because this is hollow inside, and the brake fluid comes out here. Okay? Pushes the air out, tighten it up, seals back here, system sealed again. Okay? Bleeder's always going to be on the top of whatever you're working on. If it's a drum brake like this or wheel cylinders here, it'll be on the top. Caliper, same way. Bleeder's gotta be on the top or you'll never get the air out of it. This guy's using a air hammer to get the frozen bleeder screw off. I'm not worried too much about that. Sequence. For most rear-wheel drive vehicles with a front-rear split, start with the wheel farthest from the master cylinder, which would be your right rear. Work your way to the closest. For vehicles with a diagonal split or equipped with ABS, follow whatever the manufacturer recommends. Bleeder valve on the back of a drum brake system. Manual bleeding, that's the most common, and that's the one that's going to require help from someone else. Discharge vacuum or hydraulic power booster. How do you do that? All you do is push the brake pedal a couple of times, it'll deplete the vacuum without the engine running, okay? If you notice that, if you get in your car and you don't start it up and you just push on the brake pedal a couple of times, it gets harder and harder and harder until you almost can't push it. You've depleted the vacuum or discharged the booster, okay? Make sure the master cylinder reservoir is full. Attach a plastic hose over the bleeder screw. That way you can direct the fluid into a container and it doesn't just go all over the car. Loosen the bleeder screw to press the pedal. Tighten it, release the pedal, okay? Make sure somebody has pressure on the brake pedal before you open the bleeder, okay? And before they let up on the pedal, make sure you tighten it. Because otherwise you'll draw air back into the system, all right? Submerging that hose into a container of brake fluid will make sure that you don't pull air back into it. Sometimes people do this, you can, or you can't, it's up to you. What they're doing here is replacing the brake pads, and you have to compress the caliper piston back into the caliper. Sometimes people open the bleeder screw. So what happens is you're actually purging the fluid out of there instead of pushing it back through the system. Really, it doesn't matter either way. If the brake fluid looks bad and you're gonna do a flush anyway, it's a good idea to do that. That way you're pushing that old fluid out of the caliper. On the vacuum bleed, that one uses a vacuum pump, creates a low pressure area at the bleeder screw. What that does is just draw the fluid through it, okay? You're just pulling the fluid through the system. Advantages, you can do that by yourself. Equipment is inexpensive and easy to use. Disadvantages, often air can be drawn into the line between the bleeder valve and the hose. It may be interpreted as air in the system. Vacuum bleeding, uses atmospheric pressure to force fluid through the system. You can buy these little things here at the parts stores. It's just a hand vacuum pump with a container. Hook the hose to the bleeder, open it up, and just, it'll pull fluid in there, keep it in that container for you. Okay, gravity bleeding we talked about. You can do that by yourself, takes a long time. Advantages, you can do all four wheels at once. Disadvantages, takes a long time. Gravity bleeding is simply opening the bleeder valves and allowing gravity to force the brake fluid out of the bleeder valve. Because air is lighter than the brake fluid, the air escapes before the fluid runs out. Okay. Pressure bleeding, that one requires a tool that's going to go over the master cylinder, and it's just going to pressurize the system. It's going to just push the fluid through. So once you get that pressurized, you can just open the bleeders at each wheel and it will force the fluid out. Okay? Metering valve override tool may be needed depending on the system. Probably not, because you're probably not going to be working on anything with a metering valve. Older cars. That's what the pressure bleeder looks like. It's going to have an air chamber and a fluid chamber in it. That's an example of one installed on the master cylinder. Metering valve override tool, this again is on an older car. You won't have to worry about that, I'm sure. A metering valve can be a press in or a pull out type, by the way. Special tools for each one. That's only if you're going to pressure bleed the system and only if it has a metering valve, okay? I seriously doubt you'll do either one of those. On an ABS service, before doing any brake work on a vehicle with ABS, make sure you know what you're doing. Make sure you consult the service information. Bleeding electronic hydraulic assembly. Some EH units can be bled through the use of a scan tool, where the valves are pulsed and sequenced by the brake controller. You can use an automated bleed with a scan tool on some cars, and like I said, it will just pulse those valves in sequence. Some units are equipped with bleeder valves, others may require loosening the brake lines. Again, special bleeder tool for an ABS unit. Scan tool, just use automated bleed in this case. It's gonna give you on-screen instructions on how to do it. Replacement or flushing of the brake fluid. All that is removing the old brake fluid, installing new brake fluid, right? Remove the old brake fluid from the master cylinder, fill it with new fluid. Slip the plastic over the bleeder screws, open them up, depress the pedal, let it push the old fluid out. Repeat it until you get new fluid out of the bleeder screws. Anybody ever use one of these to get the fluid out of a master cylinder?
Turkey
Looks like a
baster.
turkey baster.
It is, that's exactly what it is. Sometimes that works. We're sucking the fluid out of the master cylinder. You put fresh fluid in it after you do that, and then go to the bleeders and open them up. Push all the old fluid out of it. When you get nice clean fluid out of it, then you got a good flush. Yeah, we're not gonna worry about that. This is just trying to isolate which problem, or where the problem is with a vehicle. If you have a problem with a brake pedal, complaint spongy pedal or something like that. They're just telling you here, you can block off one part of the master cylinder and see if the problem goes away, so you know which section of the car it's in, but. Yeah. Not a whole lot about brake bleeding. Okay.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Bless you. Bless you. Bless you. Ready?
You are the first one since, somebody took the back row today.
When bleeding, wheel breaks, the bleeder screw is usually loose in 1/2 turn, true?
True.
Half turn, yeah, that's all it takes to unseat it, okay?
Vacuum, what, true?
What?
One is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Sometimes they're hard to get to.
Sometimes they're what?
They're hard to get to, the ankle,
Oh, the bleeder screws, you mean?
the bleeder, yeah.
Depends on if it's lifted or not.
Yeah, sometimes they can be, but, yeah. What they're getting here, what they're getting at with this question is, if you're gonna open it, you only have to open it to have it turn. You know, you don't have to, unscrew it like a bolt,
Yeah, I would.
Because if you keep going, it will completely come out, and then it's not gonna work for you.
I
But,
already was trying to take the thing out, and now it's taking like a whole minute just to turn. But it was like a different, ankle.
oh, really? Yeah.
Number 2,
Number 2, vacuum bleeding requires what?
a suction pump.
Yep.
Just suction pump?
Yeah,
Yep.
I didn't see anything about the other one. 3.
Number 3, technician A says that, brake paddle should be replaced with as much force as possible during the normal bleeding procedure. Technician B says, the brake paddle should be pumped rapidly during this normal bleeding procedure to force the head down towards the breathing, valve. So which technician is correct? A or B?
It's neither. Yeah,
Those are both incorrect.
both seem odd.
Do not pump it rapidly and do not put a lot of force on the brake pedal. Absolutely not
So
necessary.
what's the best way to do that?
I'm sorry.
What's the right way to do it when you're doing it?
The right way to do it is just normal pressure on the brake pedal,
Okay.
okay? Not as hard as you can, not rapid pumping, just slow pressure on it's all it takes. Have somebody open the bleeder.
I
Yeah.
was trained, I was taught to do the rapid, like I was literally, and I did it on several cars. And they were like, get in there and hurry up and pump it, and they were bleeding the brakes, and I had to pump it until I felt it firm. And then once it got firm and stiff, then he turned it and he locked it. And then he went to each one, he did that all around. And we did that on several cars, like all the time.
Here's the problem. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but you don't do it like that. That's wrong, okay? Sometimes you'll have to hit it a few times to get it to pump up enough to get a little bit of a firm pedal out of it before they open the bleeder. But you're not gonna sit there and dance on it, okay? No rapid pumping on it. If they're telling you to do that, they're obviously uneducated.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. If it's got a dual split master cylinder, what's the correct procedure for bleeding?
A.
Okay,
Where are we?
4.
4, yeah.
Is A.
What was three?
A.
Three was B.
3 is D.
4 is A,
4 is A.
5 is B.
No.
Question number 4 was yours, right?
Yeah, but I said A.
Yeah, A, okay, all right. Vacuum bleeding,
Put B.
Is it A?
What page is that on?
A or B?
Vacuum is applied where during vacuum bleeding? At
On the
each
wheel.
bleeder.
Okay, yeah.
They talking about the one you put on the wrist?
That's on
That's-
page 1160.
And you put on the message that there is a pressure.
That's right, confused.
Vacuum bleeding is not done with pressure, it's done with vacuum. You're actually opening the bleeder and hooking the vacuum pump at each bleeder. Okay, you're pulling fluid through at this point. Okay? Pressure bleeding is completely different. That's where you would put a tool over the top of the master cylinder and it forces air into it, pushes the fluid out.
What did it that?
So it's A for 5.
Yes,
Okay, because it says at the bleeder screw, it doesn't say wheel
Bleeder screw, bleeder valve, same thing.
Okay,
Yeah, they're just using a different term, but it's the same thing, the bleeder screw, bleeder valve.
okay.
How does a bleeder valve seal? D?
Tapered end.
That is correct.
Manual brake bleeding is B.
Yep, requires 2 people, most commonly used, and expensive because you don't need any tools.
So it's D?
Mhm.
D.
Oh.
I didn't agree with it.
Yep, it's all of these, or any. 8 is, where are we at? Back to you, right?
In an overall bleeding sequence, which part should be bled first? Brake calipers?
The main man, the beginning of it all, master cylinder. Should be done first if you're doing a complete brake bleed.
The button on the blank valve should be held when pressure bleeding the brakes. Button. I don't know.
Is it B?
Is it B? No. It is, metering valve. Metering valve override tools, 1161 on the bottom.
C.
C.
Yeah, for 9 I got A.
So what is it?
9 is A, yeah.
Okay, 10. Two technicians are discussing bench bleeding master cylinder. Technician A says that, front of the master cylinder should be bleed first. Technician B says that, the paddle should be bleed first. Which technician is correct? I think A.
B?
Rear first.
Wasn't good on that one.
Not good on that one, huh?
Not bad, but not as what I usually get. I got 3
What
of
was
them.
the answer to 10?
B.
Nine is
A.
I got 7 out of 10 on that one.
Got a what?
7 out of 10.
Oh, that was not bad.
To me, it is.
7's actually the minimum,
Still, it's bad.
70%.
I don't want to meet that.
All right. We did 1, right? Overall bleeding sequence, master cylinder first. Air and hydraulic brake system can cause all of these except for 1.
D.
They will stop the vehicle. Pump up, what does that mean?
B?
Why is it in quotations?
Which one?
B?
B?
Yeah.
B is correct. Air on the system will never cause a hard brake pedal. It will cause a spongy brake pedal. Lower than normal brake pedal. May require you to pump the brakes a couple of times before the vehicle will stop.
What would cause a hard brake pedal?
Vacuum booster.
Okay.
Your brake booster is bad, most likely. Vacuum bleeding, we did, right?
B.
Okay, 4. Tech A says complete the conventional brake system before the ABS modulator. Tech B says GAN tool may be required to bleed the ABS modulator.
Both.
Both of them are correct. What is not a method of brake bleeding?
Release. Release?
Mm-hmm. We did that one, we did that one. Okay, when bleeding the brakes, how long should you wait
5.
between pedal strokes? Meaning you don't rapidly pump the brake pedal.
5 seconds.
5? You gotta sit there and count?
I doubt that, but just not the rapid pump, all right? Discharge the brake booster before manually breathing brakes.
True.
How do you discharge the brake booster?
Battery?
How do you discharge the brake booster?
Disconnected? I don't know.
All you gotta do is get in the car and push the brake pedal a couple times. That's all you gotta do, without starting the engine.
Oh, discharge, oh.
Discharge, manual. They don't want you to have the power assist, right? Manual breathing the brakes. Press the brake pedal rapidly to the floor.
True, false. True.
No.
Tiffany knows this one.
True. True.
No.
It's true. I do it all the
Don't
time.
press it right, you just press it a good amount, right?
That's, look, don't get mad at that, how I was taught. Obviously, people are wrong.
There's a lot of bad information out there.
Exactly, so how am I supposed to know? You know what I mean?
You're supposed to know
How are you supposed to know when
by
you're
being in
taught
here.
by someone?
Yeah.
You know what I
Being
mean?
here.
I know what you mean. I hear it all the time. Say, I should do this, or this is the way to do that. No, it's not. No, it's not. Okay. Next chapter is
102.
your favorite wheel bearing.
Oh,
Book test.
the quiz?
Yeah, we'll do the book, then we'll take a short break before we do wheel bearing. Okay. Oh, what page is that one?
1165.
1165, all right. Okay, one we did, right? That was the pedal end.
The rear.
Mm-hmm.
So was that A or B?
When is rear?
B.
B.
Yeah. Air in the system can cause everything except for the hard brake
Hard.
pedal. Okay. Loosening bleeder valves. Deck A says that a shock is usually necessary to break the taper at the base of the valve.
No.
A.
Deck B says to apply loosening torque to the bleeder valve using a 6-point wrench so you don't strip. They're both right.
No.
Brake bleeding procedure, we did A for 4. 6 was D, we did that question as well. You don't do either one of those. If you're applying vacuum blading, it's at each bleeder valve.
6 is D.
I'm sorry, 6 is D? No,
No.
5 is D. 6 is A. All right, 7's interesting. Bleeder's opened at the caliper and no brake fluid flows. Technician A said this is normal. Brake fluid should not flow or drip out when open the bleeder valve.
I put B.
Tech B says vent port on the master cylinder may be blocked. Which one is it? B, yep, sure is. It absolutely should drip if you open the bleeder valve. Button on the metering valve should be depressed if you're pressure bleeding a front rear split or dual split master cylinder. Maximum pressure when using a pressure bleeder.
20.
30. And when bleeding brakes with a vehicle equipped with an ABS, what is the function of the scan tool?
Turn off ABS light.
Negative.
A.
Negative.
B.
Negative.
C.
Cycle the solenoids in the ABS unit, yeah. It will pulse the solenoids for you. Okay. Oh, should I take a break? come back, did the wheel bearings at 20 after.